happy Wednesday to the world out there. Gentlemen, happy Hawkscast Podcast Day to you.
Good day.
Happy Podcast Day.
It is the best of days because we're talking about a recent Seahawks playoff victory, gentlemen.
Feels good.
We're talking about a future hot Seahawks victory.
Ooh,
Also feels good.
Ooh. You're going to have to talk me up and hype me out because I'm not feeling super confident. But before we get into that, gentlemen, I'm happy to tell you we've got another Seahawks win. So that means we're doing this podcast, and as long as we win, we'll have another 2 podcasts because it's about the next game, and then we'll do like a recap. So we got this one, and we got at least one more. Let's hope for like 3 more with this. So let's keep that train coming.
Yeah, I got 3 more in me.
Yeah.
Dude, I've already been planning the OTA and the draft podcast.
One game at a time.
Oh, right.
Let's go 1-0 this week.
Yeah, let's do the
every
Russ.
week.
Let's do the Pete. Let's talk about going 1-0.
1-0 every week. I see you, Zeb, doing Zeb things.
So
I'm all over.
For another week in a row, we'll kind of backtrack a little bit, but for the second week in a row, the Seahawks are going to be playing the last playoff game of the weekend. I wrote this on the forum, so if you can, go to hawkscast.com, check us out on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast, Seahawks Forum. This weekend, and I'm really not sure what it was this year. I think it was maybe the matchups, but this is the first weekend where I watched a significant amount of every playoff game. So every one of each playoff game, I watched a significant portion of it live, not like a recording, not a highlight. I actually watched a lot of each of these games live, and they were all really entertaining games. There was a lot of back and forth, especially those 2 Saturday games. Did you guys get to watch a lot of playoffs outside of the Seahawks game?
Yeah, I watched as much as I could. These are the best 2 weekends in the NFL season, to me, and the fact that we're going to be the last game of the weekend both times is absolutely perfect.
Ross, I know it's a little bit different with your schedule, but did you get to watch a lot of the playoff games?
I didn't watch the AFC playoff games, but I followed them somewhat on like the CBS app, which has got a pretty good game day thing going on. Anyway, I only watched the NFC games. That was good.
The NFC games were definitely, of the 2 conference games, the NFC conference games were much more entertaining because there was a lot more back and I feel a lot more intrigue. The Houston Bills game was kind of like a dud until Houston just scored like a punch of points to come back. And then the
Tennessee game,
the Titans New England game was super weird because they scored basically all their points in the first half.
Yeah, I was really, really nervous. Like, I wanted the Titans to win, I think, as most of America did, but it was 14-13. I'm like, that's not a lead you can hang your hat on. And the score, and I just kept checking the score, and it would never change. So that final, pick 6?
Yeah, it was a pick 6. It was like 15 seconds on the clock, so it's not like they had a great chance, and Tom Brady didn't have anyone that could go deep, and he's not necessarily got like the best arm to throw that kind of a route. But yeah, for whatever reason, the Patriots, the first time in like 9 years they've had to play on Wild Card Weekend, they just didn't do it. Crazy thing about that, they haven't won a Wild Card playoff game because they haven't been in it since like 2006.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, that's been them. Hats off to them. They never have to play that round.
Right. It's not for lack of trying.
Right. I mean, the thing is, though, I think the more significant thing about that game is that may well finally put the nail in the coffin of their dynasty, because Tom's not coming back. Belichick is finally aging. I mean, not to not to get too early, but they could be with this could be an AFC that's open to other teams from now on again. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
What if the AFC East actually has like a winner besides the Patriots?
Maybe the Bills are going to come up and take it next year. We'll see.
What if like Miami becomes like a real team? Like Miami was strong down the stretch.
Miami is
Like,
to New England as like the Cardinals are to the Seahawks. Just like, look, we're gonna beat you at one random point every year. Just deal with it.
but they won as many games as the Patriots did in the second half of the season. Actually, they won more. I think they were like 5 out of. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. At this point, his career, Fitzpatrick is better than Brady. I said it. If I had to like win one game, I would probably take Brady. If I was like taking the Cleveland Browns and I had to take one quarterback, though, right now, I would take Fitzpatrick over Brady, wouldn't you?
Like if you're talking about like for a season.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's a pretty weighted dice to kind of throw at that.
If it was like one game and I need to win one game, I would take Brady. Still, I admit it, because he's got that determination and the eye of the tiger still, even at this point. But if I had to like run an offense all season long and I needed to run not through like a running back, I would take Fitzpatrick, man. By the way, that guy went to Harvard, so
did he go to Harvard? Interesting.
I wasn't sure if you guys knew that, but
He went to Harvard.
Interesting.
he did.
Interesting.
Ivy League man
The first time I've heard that today.
today.
But let's rewind a little bit. Let's talk about the Seahawks and the Philadelphia Eagles. Just a cool thing that happened. The Seahawks-Eagles game was the most watched wildcard playoff game in like 6 years. So,
Really?
for whatever reason, the Seahawks and the
feels
Eagles
random.
The other crazy thing is they ran a stat, and they said that 80% of all TVs in the Seattle metro area were watching that playoff game. So kudos to Seattle for rooting on the Seahawks.
Yeah.
How many TVs are in your house, Sam?
I have one functional TV that can watch football.
Okay. I know which channel it was on, so okay.
Yes.
Cool. Cool. I wasn't sure if you were padding stats by turning on 3 TVs and going, yeah, get that rating up, baby. Go for the record.
I'm one of those people. I'm glued to my sofa or my chair, and unless there's a break.
Nice.
How about you guys? Where are you guys watching? Where are you guys watching this Sunday?
Home.
Home?
Best seat in the house.
Always, yeah. I sit in my office and watch it on my computer.
So here's the thing, Ross. It's a little different for you. It's going to be crazy hours. Zeb and I, it's going to be like a 3:40 afternoon game. Are you getting a late lunch or are you getting early dinner?
I don't know. I hadn't thought about it yet. I probably won't alter my lunch and dinner schedules too much. You get a pizza about halftime.
Okay.
Something like that.
Because halftime will put it around maybe 5 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are lucky.
Yeah.
I always get to halftime when I feel like ordering a pizza, but of course it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, so I can't. But we're not open. I have to like plan ahead if I want to have pizza. I have to like order pizza the night before. Man.
Just put it in the oven the morning of.
I have the best. We can do a cooking show. I have the best reheating way in the world. I found this out a couple years ago where you put pizza into your frying pan and you cook it on the stove.
On the topping side down.
No, I don't go that far. Does that work even better? I put the lid on it, right? I grease the pan a little bit and then I put it in there and then it comes out amazing. Just cook it on low for like 3, 4, 5 minutes. Amazing. Tastes better than when you first got it. Yeah, keep doing that, and it makes the crust extra crispy.
Ooh, nice.
It's really good. Reheat your pizza on the oven. On the stove.
Do it. Stovetop.
Do it. All right.
Yeah. So the Seahawks ride the rookie wave behind DK Metcalf into the division round to play the Green Bay Packers. Seattle finds some of its injuries healing in this week, and they limited a Wentz-less Eagles team to just 3 field goals and duplicated their score of 17-9 from Week 12. Questions are still surrounding Pete Carroll, and they've kind of subsided after this playoff win, but now they face the challenge of going to Lambeau Field, a place where Wilson has never won a game. This is the Hawkscast podcast brought to you by the Hawkscast Forum. For those of you that have never been to Lambeau, Ross, you've been to that stadium. I know you've told me about the fans are like super friendly, super nice. Cool. It's a football town through and through. you went in one of the worst conditions I would imagine going to a game. Could you spend a little bit of time talking about what that experience was like? Because that was a playoff game, correct?
Yeah, that was Brett Favre's last home game as a Packer in the playoffs. I went there with Tony. Shout out to Tony, my travel bud.
What up, Tony?
We went there and we flew into Chicago. We rented a car and drove over to Green Bay. And the weather forecast was awful. So like I'm not used to really, really cold weather. So I had bought special for this trip all sorts of like exotic special underground or whatever underwear and stuff and to keep warm.
Nice.
And we got all prepped up. We went, I mean, like the stadium, you think they're exaggerating. The stadium is just like in a residential neighborhood. It sounds crazy, but it is. Like you just drive over to the area and you can't until you see the stadium. You don't realize you're gonna be there because it's just like first 1-story ramblers and 2-story houses around, and like the stadium's right there, right? So
right. It looks like where you would expect a high school football to be dropped in, right?
Yeah, I mean it's just right there, and then like the practice field's right there. It's weird. Anyway, so we just parked in a. I think we parked across the street from like a hardware store, and we got there like 5 hours early, and we hung out downtown. And it was a crazy party time because there's lots of little bars and stuff and little events. But again, it's just like a neighborhood. It reminds me of the Puyallup Fair because there's like people with little signs on their like $20 parking if you park on their lawn. So it's kind of weird. Very different from like going to a Seahawks game. And then we hung around the stadium. Like you said, there was really cool people. They're really secure in their fanhood, so they're not jerks about it. They're not. I mean, even Seahawks fans can be jerky. They're not always happy, but they were buying us drinks. They were talking to us. There was cool people dressed up as like the Pope. It was cool. Then I got into a radio show. They wanted to get quotes from a Seahawks guy, and I walked by and I said like 2 sentences, and they thought it sounded fairly intelligent, so they actually invited me to stay on. So I talked a few minutes with them. And then we went to the stadium, and the stadium at first it was just cold. And I met the one bad Green Bay Packers fan when the Seahawks went up 14-0 in the first 5 minutes. This guy behind me threatened to put my Seahawks fan flag someplace where it would hurt a lot. And
got real quick. Got real quick.
Yeah, and then after that. The Seahawks never scored again. They never made a tackle again. It was gone. And then at halftime, especially, the snow really started for real. And by the end of halftime, you could no longer see the other side of the stadium. And it's not a big stadium. I mean, it's built like a supersized high school stadium, like you said. And I mean, you couldn't. And then by 3 or 4 minutes into the third quarter, you couldn't see the field anymore because it was just pure white. The refs couldn't tell like the yardage markers. They kept having to sweep everything off, and it was this intense snow and intense cold. I mean, for them, like they didn't care, but Tony and I were just like, this sucks. My camera got ruined because all the snow that got inside the camera. And then I mean, to be honest, the highlight of the second half was just the guy who had threatened me earlier. His wife made him apologize to me.
Quick note, Tony actually just chimed in and said until his wife made him apologize, literally couldn't see across the field, and his camera broke too. So, Tony, thanks for checking out live on the chat. But yeah, that's what we're expecting. I talked about earlier that that's my biggest fear going into into Lambeau. It's the stadium and the conditions. It's not necessarily the team. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but I want to talk a little bit more about this game and want to talk about the defense. And Zeb, I'm going to hit you with topic number 1, and I want to know, did we see a great bend but don't break defense, or was that injury to Carson Wentz the key difference in that game?
I think it made a difference. I don't know that it was the key difference necessarily, because as we've seen, this team, the Seahawks, tend to kind of just play to their competition, whoever that is and whatever that is. But I think it'd be silly to not admit that there was definitely some benefit to not having not to play against Wentz and getting to play against 40-year-old, what's his name? Cade McNown?
Josh McCown. He's got a brother. That's
What are the other McNown?
Oh, there was McNown's. This is a McCown, right? I don't know.
They're
Sorry.
of Clan McCown. It's like it's Highlander, you know.
Right.
They need
Like,
to transfer
they
that
raise
football skill one at a time.
They raise their kids to be backup quarterbacks for like decades.
Exactly. I think that the defense played relatively well in that bend but don't break style. But even with the backup quarterback being in there at the end, the Eagles really did have some opportunities to score there. We did get a little bit lucky on a dropped pass or two and some other things like that. So, do I think it's a completely different game if Wentz plays the whole time? No, I don't. But I do believe that it probably was to our benefit that we didn't have to play him the whole game. Not that he's amazing or anything, but
Ross, what about you? When you were watching that game, what did you think? I mean, I didn't even notice that Wentz got injured until they mentioned it on the broadcast that he was walking to the tent.
Yeah, I was shocked because I hadn't noticed it first and it didn't seem like a big deal at first. I assumed he'd be back, right? But he never made it back. But when he went out, he was 1 of 4 for 3 yards. It wasn't like he was gonna. I don't know. It wasn't a great start of the day for him. Of course, that's a really small sample size. Like Zeb says, it probably would have made a difference, but also I'm not sure we would have been as soft. I'm pretty sure that once it was the 40-year-old in, and by the way, kudos to that guy. I do want to give that guy a shout out because like that guy, he just laid it all out there, right? He played his heart out. He left nothing on the field. That's his first playoff game apparently in his life.
He's the oldest player to throw his first playoff pass attempt.
Yeah, so I mean, I felt really good for that guy later, and like while the game was still on, it wasn't like hindsight or whatever. I would, being a good sport later, but I was fully respectful of that dude. That was awesome. But I don't know. But you saw the Seahawks once he came in, they kind of decided to play a sort of, they purposely decided to play the rope-a-dope, right? You can throw the ball downfield. We'll give you the 6 yard, the kind of exact pass that the 40-year-old wants to throw. We'll give you the 6 yard, into the tight end. Go ahead, do that all day long. Whatever. You can move the ball, but you're never going to score enough points doing it that way fast enough to keep up with us.
Right.
We're confident. We're confident. You're gonna have to, you're gonna have to punt sometimes. We're confident you're not going to get the touchdown once it gets inside the 20 because the things all shorten up on you. So they kind of seem to almost immediately adjust to, oh, it's not Carson. It's this guy. We know how we can beat this guy because we know we're going to score at least 15 points. Just make sure he's not going to score more than 10, right?
Right.
So it did feel like, like, oh, my God, what if Carson was in there? What would he have done to that defense? I don't think that's the defense we would have played if Carson had stayed in the whole time. We would have been more of that attacking like we saw that first series, right? So it's hard to say. I think the
thing that's hard to really understand or know what would have happened is you can only look at what we saw on the field, or you can try and look back at what happened in Week 12. And in Week 12, the Seahawks forced 4 turnovers from Carson Wentz, and I think that's what would have been the difference. I don't think the Seahawks would have lost if Carson Wentz would have played, just because Seattle was tackling so well in that game. I mean, KJ had this amazing tackle on the quarterback as he was like just trying to move to the sideline. He just like took him out, and it was like just an example of great tackling all day by the Seahawks, which is one of the biggest reasons why I thought they did so well. But they were willing to give up those 5 and 7 yard routes. They were willing to give the tight ends those soft zone coverage, routes, but they didn't have anywhere to go. And then once the field shrank and there was less pockets for them to throw to, he just held on to the ball. I think the biggest difference would have been that Carson Wentz would have forced the ball over, and while he maybe have hit on a few more, he also probably would have lost. That's something that Carson Wentz has had kind of like dog his career. He is prone to make a mistake. He's prone to put the ball on the ground. Seahawks did that to him last time, and I really don't see, with the manner in which Seattle is playing that defense, that would have changed in this game, because that was one of our healthiest defensive lineups that we had out there, and I thought they were doing a great job. Obviously, they limited the Eagles to just field goals, which is always a huge win.
No, I mean, you're going to win a lot of playoff games if you only allow field goals.
And to the point of Josh McCown, the reason why he's a backup is one of his jobs is to never throw the ball to the other team. You know, a sack is worth well more than a bad pass that could get intercepted. And that's what you saw. He knew that I can't make a risky throw. I'm going to try and see what I can do. And then these are just like coverage sacks that the Seahawks are getting.
Hey, man, I'll take him. 7-7.
Yeah.
The other cool thing I was during the broadcast they mentioned about him was that apparently he has expanded Carson Wentz's game or improved it, where this year, for the first time ever, Carson's willing to take the checkdowns. Before he disdained those and would tend to press. But having a 40-year-old backup who can only throw checkdowns will teach you the benefits sometimes of throwing a checkdown. So I thought that was interesting. Anyway, that's sure. My McCown happy hour. So there you go.
Hey, and shout out to Josh McCown, who we've watched play for years. He's played for like 8 different teams. Never been really the kind of guy that you think is going to be able to start and lead your team to the playoffs, but he has shown the ability to make the throws and win games on occasion. So, respect to that dude.
Dude, he outran Ansah to the sideline.
Yeah, well, I could have outran Ansah.
He got injured
that's
on
a
that
sign
play.
Ansah's done, right? I thought, man, like I was half expecting at halftime for them to tell us the onside had been cut, because when the McCowns are outrunning you to the sideline, dude, like you got to hang up your cleats, don't you?
Yeah. Well, I think Ansah's still a smart player who knows his assignments and can get pressures, but yeah, he's not chasing anybody down from behind.
But if you don't have like a first step as a defensive end, I mean, like,
yeah, I mean, he's probably done for sure, but it doesn't mean he's still not one of our best 3 or 4 options at this point. So
that says a lot.
It does. It says a lot.
I know this is insane, but I still want DK Metcalf to rush the passer. I'm serious.
I know you're serious.
I only on like obvious passing situations, like 3rd and long. Like that dude's 6'4" with like a 30 whatever inch like leap. Like that dude would be a force.
Yeah,
he could do it.
Like Jason Taylor.
Apparently he's apparently asked Pete Carroll to be allowed to like try to block punts. So it's like one step away from that.
He should be doing that.
Totally. 6'4".
Doug Baldwin's blocked punts, so why not DK?
Seriously, he has, right? He actually got. I mean, he actually blocked a punt at least.
Yeah, at least the one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Metcalf should be out there like speed rushing on 3rd downs, man.
Final thoughts on the defense and the injury to Carson Wentz.
I think it all worked out exactly how we're happy that it did.
Yeah, I think the rope-a-dope is real.
I agree. Let's move on to topic number 2. Russ, I want to know, last year in the playoffs, we saw the running game was bottled up and the passing wasn't really unleashed until it was kind of too late. Why was there a difference this year? The running game still wasn't that great, but the passing game did more than enough to win.
Well, I think last year, like, they went in thinking, looking at Dallas, for whatever reason, they felt that the key to the game was going to be running it. Like, they felt that they couldn't pass as well on it. They didn't think that would actually end up working, I don't think, is what they thought. Whereas I think this week going in, the game plan already was to pass a ton. I mean, not abandon the running game, but I think like this week, more like last year, I felt like the whole point to run was to win. And this week, it felt like the running game was, hey, we're a running team. You got to pay attention to our run. Okay, now you're paying attention to that, so I can throw deep to Metcalf. I mean, watching this morning, some not game tape, but mic'd up to whatever stuff of Russell Wilson. He's on the sideline saying, like, they're biting on it every time. Just keep me moving, keep us, keep doing the play action, and I don't know. It just felt like from the beginning, like they just approached the Philadelphia team better in a better and more realistic fashion than the Cowboys. Last year on the Cowboys, arguably the biggest problem was like they just didn't get their scouting done properly. They thought they could do stuff that didn't work. This week they got it right. What they thought they would be able to do and what they didn't think they'd be able to do was correct. You know, if you think you've identified a weakness and you plan for it all week, and then you end up going in and it doesn't actually work out for you, then you're kind of screwed, right? There's so much that goes. That's why I was saying it, because there's so much more to a head coach's job than people talk about. Pete Carroll normally does a better job of identifying what's going to work and what's not, because you can't just make it up on the fly all the time. It did sort of work with the Cowboys, I guess. Once they decided to throw, it did work. But oftentimes, if you haven't figured out what you're going to be able to do before the game, you're never going to be able to get it done.
Yeah.
So I thought it was as simple as that. They identified.
Crazy stat here. Russell Wilson has he's second place all time in the playoffs now for most yardage responsible at 95%. So Russell Wilson was responsible for 95% of the Seahawks offense in this game. It's second only to Otto Graham, who has a record at like 96, 98%, where all they did was just run the ball with him. So
70 years ago.
Were you at that game? I saw that game.
You were there?
I got my tickets at a quarter. Showed up at the stadium with an onion tied to my belt, which was the fashion at the time.
What about you? Did you have the sense that there was like a change in philosophy, or what was so different about this last year's playoff game and this playoff game we saw against the Eagles?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think first off, I think the Eagles are just a better matchup for us. I think the Cowboys, this version of the Cowboys is a little bit of a bad matchup for us, and I don't have anything necessarily to explain why that is, except for that I've had people who understand football better than me tell that to me, so I believe them. I also think the fact that we have a guy like DK Metcalf gives Pete and Russ confidence to do kind of some of that stuff that we did. Like what do they say? This is the most yards of rookie wide receivers ever had in his first playoff game.
He set two records. He set the record for most yards by a rookie in their first game, and the most yards by a rookie ever.
Yeah, so I think we saw DK have a fairly good rookie season, and we saw him kind of go up and down, and we saw kind of what his problems are and what he's good at. And then the week before versus San Francisco, he almost seemed like things kind of came together for him. And then I think the Philly game is a great example of everything working right for him, and he was able to essentially beat his guy, at will. So being able to take those deep shots in those situations, I think they had a lot of confidence to be able to do that and pull it off. And so when the running game, like, literally was not working outside of Russell Wilson against the Eagles, they didn't have much of a choice but to go to the air, and DK made the best of all of his opportunities, and I think that probably played a lot into why they chose to do it that way.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that impacted why we saw a still balanced attack by Seattle is because Seattle never played behind. They always had the lead, even when it was tied. It never felt like Seattle was out of it. They go up 3-0, tied 3-3, then they score their touchdowns, and really, like, Philadelphia's they don't have a chance. So I do agree with you guys that it was a bad matchup for Philadelphia. And to a degree, I think Seattle kind of got away with relying on, really 3 or 4 big passing plays that kind of just, like, broke everything. The catch by Tyler Lockett that he had on the sideline, that ended up in a punt. The giant touchdown, obviously, to DK scores. Then you have a couple key conversions from D. Moore. Then you have the catch that sealed the game where they just go, balls out, and Russell Wilson basically throws the ball, and DK has to kind of like wait for it. It's kind of crazy to think that that's really the game. And I didn't really see too much to worry about in regards to the running game. I think Fletcher Cox really messed things up for Seattle up the middle, which kind of like
that
screwed
dude is
everything.
manly.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean the fact that we saw his name for basically like the first like 5 or 6 offensive snaps for Seattle, and they just couldn't get anything. They're like, all right, we got to get away from this guy.
I've heard his name so often. I thought he was like sponsoring the game.
But yeah, I mean he was eating Joey Hunt's lunch for breakfast. It was not a great showing for him. But then when they went passing, that offensive line held so well, especially like Ross was saying, whenever they ran play action, like it just opened everything up.
It's funny because that's a lot to do with Marshawn Lynch's pure name, is what a reputation can do for you. And then one performance and not having a lot of tape. Like Homer's only played like one game where he's gotten lots and lots of carries, but he did well with it, right? And of course, Lynch has sort of like the legend of Lynch. And I think that made the Eagles respect the running game even more than maybe they should have.
Do you think it was the
Like
touchdown? Is it the touchdown?
Sorry?
Do you think that it was the touchdown that Lynch scored, or is it just Lynch in general?
I just think every time like Lynch walks out there right now, I mean, like people know like we brought Lynch back for the playoffs, right? So I think every time Lynch walks out there, all eyes are on him, and like it's going to create opportunities even to use him as a decoy or even as pass play, right? He had a 22-yard catch, right? So it's going to create opportunities, and again, like when Homer's out there, if you hadn't had that one really strong game, I don't think they'd respect it at all. Like, I think they'd be, okay, it's Homer in there, probably it's going to be a pass, or we don't have to put much in the box because it's just this guy. But he showed enough in his one game carrying the team that, like, and that's the only tape that's there, right? That's the only tape that really exists, plus his preseason tape, which also was really, really good. And so, like, they might be slightly overrating him. And then, again, like Lynch comes in and you're expecting it's going to be like a run, and his forte is up the middle, so you're going to clog the box up, and then all of a sudden DK Metcalf is open, or Lockett. God, I feel a little bit bad for Lockett. Lockett gets one season in the limelight, and he's already, let's be honest, he's overshadowed now, isn't he?
I think the reason why it's a little bit of overshadowing is I think there's still concerns about his injury. He doesn't look 100%. But that catch he had down the sideline was so impressive. Like his ability to connect with Russell Wilson is so different, and it's even different from Doug. The way that Doug would catch like a sideline catch, but he wouldn't do like a toe tap like that, right? He would drag his feet. He'd run like a slant or an out, and he would know to drag his feet down. But I don't remember Doug doing a lot of toe tapping. I feel like Tyler Lockett has like an unworldly ability to connect with Russell and those toe tappers.
Sure seems that way.
Did you think that he caught it the first time around?
I didn't think so. And then even on the replay, I didn't think they were going to overturn it.
I didn't think they were going to overturn it because he had the ball. Even though he had the ball, his hands underneath the ball, the top part of the football touched the ground. So I thought they were going to bail the refs out and say like, well, he didn't maintain possession because the ball was touching him, which you're allowed.
Or
to do.
not enough evidence to overturn it, which is typically the safe call the refs will make in a situation like that. Sure, I'm glad it went our way though.
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously, ultimately, like you said, the drive ended in a punt. Maybe it helped in field position a little bit, but other than that, it was pretty non-consequential. But it was a great play, great throw, and a great catch. It was cool to see the refs get it right there.
Yeah. Final comments about the offense.
I don't know. Let's keep it going, man. Like I don't know. Like I don't know if this is DK's coming out party. Hopefully he can keep that going because he's the kind of guy that can literally dominate at his position if things keep clicking the way they have been the last couple of weeks with him. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most. And of course, Marshawn. Like I think he's only going to get better the more he plays this postseason. So if we can keep that one going as well,
for me, the verdict is still a little bit out on Marshall. I can't tell. Like, if I want to see it that way, I see it that way. But if I'm in a little bit more of a negative mood, oh my God, he's really just kind of lost it. I can very much see it that way too. I can't tell if Marshawn is back.
I think that's fair. Well, I would say the one thing that Marshawn has that is going against him is the fact that we've got literally our worst running offensive linemen right now.
That's true.
No disrespect to Fant and to Jamarco Jones and Joey Hunt, but the fact that 60% of our starting offensive line is out for the year, we're not seeing like the best of our run blockers. Maybe Dwayne Brown and Mike Upati play this week, and like we could see a different side. But I think that's a very fair question to ask. Is like, what are we going to see, and what can we expect to see from Marshawn?
Even the play in this game where everybody's hanging their hat on touchdown, everybody's like, "Wow!" Like that's like classic Marshawn Lynch. I didn't think so. He didn't like stop and then like kind of reset and square up and then just bull stuff in by pushing. He like spun out of it and like kind of like, and there was nobody there when he spun.
Yeah, I think that's part of what he did. That was always part of what he did, was find a way to get out to avoid that tackle, and especially that close to the end zone.
Maybe.
I feel like he ran better against the 49ers than he did against the Eagles, and I think having Upati out last week against the Eagles is probably one of the main reasons. If we can get Brown back and get Fant back in there as that extra blocker instead of having to start, I think Marshawn and Homer will both benefit from that.
Doesn't sound like Brown's going to make it back.
Brown, it sounds like he might.
He didn't practice today, right?
Yeah, they said that they're going to give him some like light conditioning, but we're probably not going to know more until like Friday.
Yeah, from what I understand, he's more likely than Upati. Right? Or am I getting that backwards?
I thought it was opposite, but we'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, if I'm almost tempted to like, Jamarco Jones isn't a great left tackle, but if you let Jamarco Jones play left tackle and then let Fant be still the wandering, the roving tackle, extra tackle, I wonder if that would work out better.
I think it would. I think that's our best.
I think you have to question who's your left guard, right? Because if it's not Jamarco Jones, which again, a guy that's never played, I can't remember what
Luke Wilson
played. He's never even played tackle. He's never played guard before, like until this year. So
I think Jamarco's our. If Upati can't go, Jamarco's our guy there.
Yeah, that's where he played last week. But I'm just not sure. Like you have an option to put Fant out as your sixth lineman, because I don't know. I don't think you saw Jamarco to your left tackle.
They tried another backup guard as the wandering guy once.
But also that's like Phil Haynes, the rookie that got blown up on the field goal attempt, right?
Yeah,
Philip.
He didn't get blown up. He missed his assignment. He pushed this guy the wrong way.
Almost like that.
I mean, it wasn't like he got blown up.
Tony chimed in and says Marshawn legs were churning on other plays just like the old days. So I'm gonna think positively.
Yeah, but if there's no power behind it, I mean, I can churn my legs too, but I don't push that many guards.
He fell forward. He got that touchdown. So
yeah.
All right, let's move along. Let's talk about topic number 3, and topic number 3 is the Hawks Cast Corner. And we're going to talk about Seahawks Twitter because it's always providing us with great insight to what some other fans think.
It's an endless source of positivity in my life.
Yeah. Zeb, I want to know, Pete owns more than half of all playoff wins for the Seahawks franchise. Why doesn't he get more love from the fans?
Because fans demand perfection, and if they're not getting their perfection, they're unhappy. You can always tell somebody who watches just the team they support versus somebody who watches a larger range of the sport, because they nitpick much more. Every imperfection and every inconsistency is like glaring, and then they watch the highlights from the Chiefs game or from the 49ers game, and those teams look like they're so perfect and they do everything right. And then you're watching the Seahawks and you're watching every snap and you're reading every criticism from other fans. So I think the main thing with Seahawks Twitter and Seahawks fans in general, probably like most other fan bases, is that people just don't know what they're talking about half the time, and they demand perfection. And we all know perfection is impossible. Pete Carroll has quite obviously been the best coach in the history of this team, led this team to more victories than anybody else, more playoff wins, like you said. He's not perfect. He's got his flaws. We've discussed those weekly on this podcast, as I'm sure every other podcast and radio show has. So one day will be the day for Pete Carroll to step down and for somebody else to come in. But for now, I'm not ready to see that happen unless you tell me we got somebody lined up who I think can come in and do what he's done or close to it. Yeah, I don't know. The people that are calling for firing or constantly upset about the few things that he doesn't necessarily do really well, it's all hogwash in my opinion.
Ross, what about you? This is something I know you wanted to talk about, and it's an interesting kind of case study almost. It's because it's what is the mindset of the fan who even thinks this way, right?
I mean, there's a lot of truth to what Zeb's saying. It's a lot of like not very realistic thinking out there, unrealistic expectations of what things are meant to look like, and just flat out human nature just to not appreciate what you have, I suppose. And there's a few unique situations. I mean, I feel like we're in our sort of second generation of players under Pete, and so there's probably also a lot of people out there who were quite attached to a lot of the players who have gone. And they don't actively say, I mean, I don't see anybody actively saying, you know what, I really liked Richard Sherman, and Richard Sherman's gone. You got rid of him, so I don't like you anymore. But when you do have the early success, 2 back-to-back Super Bowls, and then you lose Bennett, Sherman, Thomas, and on the way out, some of those players weren't very nice. And fans tend to identify with players sometimes. To a degree. I mean, we could go into a whole conversation about that. But I guess that's part of it. I have to think that's part of it. Where unconsciously these people are sort of loyal to players that Pete got rid of. And then, here he's probably a victim of success. Once you go to 2 Super Bowls in a row, that sort of becomes like the norm. Every other season every season you've always won a Super Bowl. But once you've been to 2 in a row, seasons that you don't get to them don't just feel like every player says, "Oh, well, every season I don't win the Super Bowl, failure." Everybody can give lip service to that, but you don't really think so, right? I mean, this season, there's a lot of us that feel like, you know what, we're playing on house money right now. I didn't expect us to get this far, maybe, but I don't know. Fans expect a lot, I suppose, and I don't know. I feel like it's not a new phenomenon, because I feel like when Holmgren was coach, within 2 seasons of going to the Super Bowl, there was a lot of this kind of similar criticisms. And going back a million years, back to the Chuck Knox days, there was people that if you weren't getting to the AFC Championship game like they did one year, then there was just talk about how boring he was because it was ground chuck, da-da-da-da. So I don't know. You just want to put it into human nature, and I wonder if every fan base is like this. Like are people in like New England right now going like, God damn, Belichick's lost it, dude. Like we were in the wild card round and we lost. Why isn't he bringing in a younger quarterback? Why doesn't he have a better plan for our wide receivers? Why didn't we take Metcalf? Like, I just wonder if every fan base is like this.
Probably to a point, although I imagine New England has probably the most reason to believe that even if it's not right this year, they can get right again next year.
Right. But I hope it's. I agree that it's probably like that to a degree, but I want to, but I don't want to believe that Seattle's a little bit unique in this case, because it's weird. We're right in the middle of the success still. We're in the playoffs right now. We're one of the last 4 teams left in the NFC, and people are still bitching. It's bizarre. I don't know what they expect.
Perfection.
I guess.
Nothing short of perfection is good enough. It's crazy.
I think a lot of both of you guys are saying is like, one, you have the element where you've only seen the Seahawks, so you only judge how the Seahawks do, and it's like it's a roller coaster, right? So when they do well, you're going to nitpick stuff because like, oh, clock management or 4th down calls or could have done more. But also the thing I think that's really difficult is that Seahawks play a style of football that is really, really unattractive. We all think it's fun, and I think we've talked about the team philosophy, the personnel decisions that allows you to kind of game the system, but it's not sexy. There's nothing about this game with DK Metcalf being a big exception. This is not fun, exciting, on your feet kind of football that the larger NFL is playing. You look at teams like Baltimore, you look like Kansas City, you look at any of these high-scoring offenses, and you look at what Seattle has and wait, we're doing what? We're going to pay a quarterback $35 million and try to limit him to 25 passes a game? We're gonna run 40 times with a running back drafted in the 7th round and the 6th round, and we're going to bring a guy that hasn't played football in a year to play football more? I think that's kind of the element of if you don't have a greater understanding of the NFL as a larger system or how other teams are built and the complexities that they run into, it's going to be really hard. We talked on this podcast, as good as the LA Rams one was last year, we said, well, they're really shooting for 1 year because they're not going to be able to keep that team together. Any money they spend is just going to knock 2 or 3 more players off of that team, and they're going to be a shell of themselves. And that's what we're seeing. It's going to be even worse this offseason for them. And that's the thing that Pete Carroll has been able to overcome. It's the Bill Belichick model of he's not doing it in the same way that Bill Belichick and the Patriots are doing it, but he's kept together the core players that he knows is valuable to his team. And I think there's a certain sense of kind of spoiled, like Ross was saying, going to back-to-back Super Bowls. There were people that I saw online that were complaining that Pete Carroll hasn't won a playoff game in enough years. And man, you guys have been Seahawks fans longer than I have. I remember when the Seattle Seahawks won, a playoff game in my active lifetime that I was a Seahawks fan. That was huge, and that was something that we had not seen in decades. And then now we're saying they only won a playoff game 2 years ago. If they don't win this game, I'm done. Dude.
Yeah, let's hire Jason Garrett and see how all those people feel.
Funny, here's the thing about the Cowboys and Jason Garrett. They have been my secret love affair. I've been relishing their season because it's just so much. How people watch The Bachelor or reality TV? That's what the Cowboys and their season was to me this year. I went to so much Cowboy stuff, seeing all their fans, guys like Skip Bayless, pine and go this roller coaster up and down, we're finally on our way down. Oh my God, my team is garbage. I'm throwing away all my jerseys. It was so much fun. I don't think I'll do it next year, but for whatever reason this year I was 100% on that. Let's watch it all burn.
It's a pretty good time.
Yeah.
I've never taken that much joy in somebody else's teams. That's not quite. In the 90s, when I was stuck in the Bay Area, I relished every 49ers loss. I mean, that was early 90s when it got really annoying where they went from one Hall of Fame quarterback to the next. Every move they made seemed to work out. I was really, really, really hated the 49ers. And so, yeah, I kind of get it. When they started to topple, I was happy, but
Tony chiming in on the chat, and he says, there's so many Seahawks fans who don't pay attention until Pete took over. They don't remember the years before, and you're right, they don't pay attention to the rest of the league. And I think that's so interesting because you look at the fall of Mike Holmgren. He went to the Super Bowl in 2005, and then he leaves the team in 2007. 2008 is the Jim Mora year, and then 2009, Pete Carroll's here.
2009 was Mora. 2008 was Holmgren.
Okay, 2009. So we're talking about 4 seasons after Mike Holmgren goes to a Super Bowl. We get a year of Jim Mora, and then Pete Carroll starts in 2010. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean it was weird to watch his career wind down too because he really did change. It was funny because when he was new and with Green Bay and when he started with Seattle, he was known as an innovator. But by the time his tenure at Seattle ended, he had become super, super hyper conservative, right?
Yeah.
And it was sad, and because it wasn't even something you could deny, you was just watching it. So like you knew when he went to the Browns after a year, like that's not going to work out, man. Like you're not getting the home run you think you're getting.
Yeah,
I felt really sad about it because his last year, like, it was a disaster.
And I think with Holmgren, a lot of that issue is like he had an all-class coaching tree. Like you go back and look at the people he was responsible for coaching, a lot of his coaches have had huge success. Birdfinger chiming in, he's saying, I'm here in Austin, and the meltdown in the state of Texas over the Cowboys was fantastic. I'm 100% on that bandwagon with you. But let's move along. We got one more topic to go, and Ross, topic number 4, we're talking about the Green Bay Packers. Are you scared of the number 2 seed, 13-3 Packers?
No, and to a disturbing degree. I've been trying to figure out all week long why I'm not. 13-3 is so impressive, and yeah, I mean, like that's hard to do. And number 2 seed, they get a bye. They're awesome. They have talent, and they don't scare me at all. And I don't know why. Maybe I haven't watched them enough. Maybe I haven't like poured over their stats enough. They got a 4,000-yard passer. They got a 1,000-yard rusher. They got Devontae Adams, but man, like that team doesn't do much for me. And I feel part of the record is probably a result of, I mean, I don't know. It's weird. I don't want to say like they play in a bad division because like the Vikings are still in it and everything, but you know, if you're just marginally better than the people around you, you get 2 victories out of it. You get 2 victories out of it. So I don't know. They don't scare me. Aaron Rodgers is not Aaron Rodgers in my opinion. And he never really, not true. It's going to overstate it for a second. But, I mean, like, that guy is, like, he seems to care about his stats a lot. And so he doesn't ever want to throw an interception, so he throws away. I read something like 10% of his passes are throw. That's a lot of throwaways. And, like, also, like, he'll give up on a fast to anybody. Like, that shows up when you watch it. If the play's not developing immediately, it's like the anti-Russell. If the play's not there, you'll see him throw the ball into the dirt in the first 2 seconds over and over and over again in a game. Whereas Russell Wilson, if it's not there, he'll do anything he can to give it a chance. He's not going to put the ball into danger. He throws very few interceptions as well, but he'll let things develop. But Aaron Rodgers, like that, you know, we all still talk about the game where he wouldn't even throw to the right side of the field because Richard Sherman was over there. So, to me, that makes somebody like Pete Carroll, whose specialty is defensive backs, excuse me, my throat, that makes the game planning easier for us, right? You can plan for Aaron Rodgers, given his weaknesses and the fact that he's got one real weapon to throw. That's Devontae Adams. Jimmy Graham is done. MSV is done. I mean, he's never was. So I don't know. Like this team doesn't. It feels like they're probably pretty good and solid, but the strengths seem to go against our strengths, and our strengths seem to be things that they're not going to be able to deal with. So I think I don't fear them. I think.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of them. I mean, like you said, they're 13-3. They obviously can win games, and I think even all that you just said about Aaron Rodgers, which I agree with, as long as he's playing, they got a chance. So, I don't look at this as like, I don't think this is a game we're going to go up there and dominate or anything. I think we match up well with them. I think if we can contain Jones and keep him from breaking off a lot of big runs, which has been an issue for us as of late, I think we got a good chance to go up there and win. I think they're going to have a harder time stopping our passing attack than we are stopping them. So we'll see. I think I'm more confident than Sammy is. I don't know if I'm as confident as you, Ross, but I do believe that we. I don't know, and this is that silliness as a football fan, but I just kind of feel like destiny might be on our side again. So, and I think that that NFC championship matchup against the 49ers is just destined to happen. So we'll let the
what if it's the Vikings at home?
Ooh,
it could be, but I don't. It's totally possible. I think we can beat either of those teams too. I just feel like it just has that feel that it had back in 2013, where it's going to come down to us and the Niners. So, not looking past this game. I'm looking forward to watching it. I think it's probably going to be another close one where the Seahawks don't necessarily look as good as we'd like them to for most of the game, but I think in the end they're going to have what it takes to pull it out. So, the Packers don't particularly scare me.
Do they scare you, Sammy?
No, the thing is they don't scare me, and that's the thing that I don't get. Like, I can't wrap my brain around everything. Like, I'm looking at the stats. Aaron Rodgers has a marginally worse year than Russell Wilson. He has less touchdowns. He has one less interception, but he has less passing yards. His completion percentage is not that great. It's 62%. Russell Wilson's throwing at 66%. Obviously, we don't have Chris Carson anymore, but Chris Carson ran for 1,200 yards. Aaron Jones ran for 1,000 yards. He's got a ton more touchdowns on the ground. We had Tyler Lockett that exceeded 1,000 yards on 82 catches. Devontae Adams caught 900, so he almost caught the exact same number he got almost 1,000 yards on 83 yards, but statistically, you think of every power play, and obviously Seattle loses because we don't have Carson anymore, but on paper, offensively, Seattle looks like it has a slight advantage, and obviously that hurts us maybe in the running game. I think the biggest thing is I'm afraid of what that stadium is. Seattle's never won in Lambeau with Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. Even historically, I think there's only one game where I can remember the Seahawks winning, and that was like Mike Holmgren's first year with Matt Hasselbeck after he got traded. So we're talking about like the 2004 season. Lambeau has been a hall of terrors for not only Russell Wilson, but even like historically with Seattle. I mean, everyone remembers Alex Bannister on that, on the overtime. We want the ball and we're going to score. I love that from Matt Hasselbeck until he threw that pick six and we lost in overtime. We're going back way back for that game, but like I just don't know. It's one of those things. I would assume it's like how Philly fans feel against playing Russell Wilson. He's never lost to them, except this is just about playing in Lambeau. Whatever reason, it's just not been a great game. I think that this game will be really close and it'll be really competitive. I do give the advantage to Green Bay. I think if we're going to give out when we do go through the predictions, but no, I'm not impressed by their 13-3 record. I'm not impressed that they're the number 2 seed. They had to struggle against a division foe to win it at the end, and congrats to them for coming out ahead and getting the 2 seed. But no, I don't think of them as a really, really fearsome or daunting or scary team. I just don't know what it is, but I'm not confident that we have like the best matchup like what we saw in Philly, or if we were to face the Vikings, or if we were to face the Niners. Birdfinger chiming in and says he heard a stat on TV that says Green Bay is in their last 11 home playoff games, they're 6-5. So maybe we make it 6-6.
I mean, there is a mystique to their stadium, but history doesn't get to play the game. It's gonna be cold, but it's not gonna snow. Those things go for us.
Yeah,
I don't think they have anybody on their team that can match up on Metcalf, to be honest.
No,
and if
they're
they're
the worst deep passing off defense.
Yeah, and here's the thing: like that's I mean, nobody throws a better deep ball than Wilson. So if they do make some adjustments because they're looking at the game film from last week and they're like crapping their pants over Metcalf, great. If you want to leave Lockett open, if you want to roll your safety in coverage, go ahead, because Lockett can still make plays. He's still, on most teams, he still would have been the best deep threat.
Yeah.
And you know what? We haven't mentioned, and we haven't mentioned much this season at all, but who should get a little mini shout out is David Moore. David Moore's role was much reduced because we have better talent this year at wide receiver, but he hasn't pouted, he hasn't curled up, he hasn't made an ass of himself, we haven't talked about him at all because he hasn't done anything bad. And that's actually great because so many young receivers, especially at that position, if one year you look like you're kind of like an upcoming guy and the next year you kind of take a back seat again, they would pout. They would cry. They would get on, their favorite media reporter and talk about how they're not getting targets, even though they've earned them. He's done nothing but be a professional. And last game he had, only 2 receptions, but both for long gains. And I feel comfortable. If you found a way to double cover Metcalf and Lockett both, I'll go to Moore in that case, because that means you're putting your third or fourth guy out, maybe fifth of your defensive backs on him. He's going to win that.
Yeah.
I just don't think and if you want to do all that as well, we still do have Homer and Lynch who look like they can do the job. So I don't know. I'm more curious whether they fear us at this point.
Tony,
are they afraid of us? Are they sufficiently afraid of us? Because our team is scary. We don't score tons of points, but there's no way of shutting us down completely, in my opinion.
Yeah. Tony chiming in and saying Aaron Rodgers is 3-2 as a starter in Lambeau in the playoffs. So that's not a great record to have. So
he's no Brett Favre.
Favre.
Yeah. Final thoughts on the Packers.
They ain't all that in a bag of chips.
Let's just go beat them. Let's just go
that would be,
up there and beat them.
That would be so great. Because the thing is,
I want to see that sour look on Aaron Rodgers' face.
Here's the thing. If Seattle wins, we know that we're going to either go to San Francisco or the Vikings are to come to Seattle. That's kind of cool to know that, like, hey, whatever happens at the end of it, we know what's going to happen. So maybe that will be some good motivation, because I think for Seattle, the players, the team, the fans, both of those options are actually really, really good options to have.
Yeah.
All right. Which do you prefer?
I agree.
Oh, I would love to host the Vikings.
I'm split. I want to host the Vikings. That's a home game, but man, the chance to beat San Francisco one more time this year, God, that's tempting.
I'm with you too, man.
They
both sound great.
We're talking about a difference. Maybe I'm like 60-40.
The 60-40 ratio.
60-40. I want the home game versus I'd be willing to travel, because look, we were one of our most injured in that Week 17 matchup on Sunday night, and we were a touchdown, a half yard away from winning that game.
Yep. It was ours.
Yeah. Quandre Diggs, man. Quandre Diggs is making all the difference right now.
Stay healthy.
It's crazy how much of a difference maker that is. But
that's what Pete wants. Pete wants that safety that can do all these things. That's what we've been blessed with having with Earl Thomas, and now we are seeing it with Quandre. So I'm excited.
Yeah, it's funny because it's what we've been saying. It's just so funny to see it so obvious. Like we've always said, Pete Carroll's defense runs best, or only really, really properly runs when you've got the right free safety. I've said it for years because I'm always like, I'm a stand for free safeties, but but just to see the difference though, it's so dramatic. It's impressive. And so, Diggs, is his contract up?
He's got another year.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good.
And
So we're good next year too.
Seattle got him for a 5th round pick, and he was signed for 2 years. So impressive.
Just want to point out when they got him, they could have failed him. Like they didn't expect that injury to be that bad, right? They first got him, he couldn't play the first 2 weeks. They could have avoided that trade, and so many teams would have. When they showed up and saw that he wasn't ready to go, so many teams would have avoided that trade. But again, kudos to whoever decided to keep him anyway. Forward thinking.
Yeah, I think they were looking long term on him and all along. So
right, but still, so many teams would have just said this dude's damaged goods. That's not what we're paying for. We need him to fix our defense, next week.
Right.
So I was pretty impressive behavior in
It's just that foresight.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into some predictions. Ross, I'm going to fire off the predictions for you first. Okay. Final score, Seahawks at Packers.
Oh, that's a hard one. Something similar, I think, to this game. So something like 20-16.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'll go 23-19.
Price is right.
It's not prices.
It's Price is right.
So the point spread opened, I believe, at 4.5. It's now gone to 4. So people are betting on Seattle. I'm still of the mindset. I don't think this is a. It's not that it's a great matchup, but I'm not sure if maybe we're not healthy enough. I'm thinking it's gonna be like a lower scoring game, so I'm gonna go like 17-14 Green Bay. Seahawks cover, but that's not what I want. I want the Seahawks to win, but that's my score.
Deal.
Ross, who is going to have the better MVP game, Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers?
Wilson, and it's not close.
Yeah, give me Russell.
I'm annoyed because I think what Rodgers is going to do is he's going to go to a Phillip Rivers type mode where he's just going to chew apart Seattle 5 yards at a time. It's not going to be the most impressive day, but I think that's what helps him win. So I'm going to give Rodgers the credit begrudgingly.
Jeez.
I know, because I can't explain it.
Which podcast am I on this week? Jeez.
Apparently I'm on the Cheesehead podcast.
The Pack Attack.
The downer.
Birdfinger is calling a 27-24 Seahawks win, and he's saying Russ is going to have the big game. Tony, I don't know what you're agreeing to, but yes, I agree with you 100%. Are we going to see a beast mode run, Ross? I know you're looking forward to that.
I think we see a little bit of a mini beast. Maybe a 15-20, but kind of impressive.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we'll probably see Marshawn's best run yet this season.
I'm of the mindset that I think this is going to be his best game. Even with the offensive blocking we've got, I really do expect Marshawn to have a much stronger game.
Pete's talking about feeding him.
Yeah.
So,
Birdfinger saying Beast is going to go for 50 yards plus. Who's going to see more targets, Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf?
Metcalf.
Yeah, I'll go with DK.
8 targets.
Ooh, that could be a nice game for DK. I'm thinking that after this film, they're going to try and give a lot of help to DK because he's going to attract a lot of attention. So I'm going to say Lockett's going to get a little bit more love. Birdfinger is with me. He's saying Lockett as well. Are we going to abandon the run game in the first, second, third, or fourth quarter?
None of the above.
Yeah, we will
not
not
abandon the run game.
We're not abandoning, not this game.
I'm
going to say Seahawks podcast.
I know.
Get your mind straight.
I'm saying I'm not going to say we're not going to abandon the run game. I'm going to say we are, and it's because we're going to need to score, and we're going to try and make it close. I'm saying maybe the end of the third, beginning of the fourth, we're going to be down 2 scores, and we're going to try and get it back a little bit. So,
man, we're going to have to do some sort of special podcast post-game for a sort of I told you so moment.
Dude, I will eat all the crow in the world if I'm wrong. So Tony's saying in the 5th quarter, so I'm down with that. Ross, this one's for you. Over, under, Rodgers throwing the ball away, 3.5.
Over. Like, that could be 3.5 in the first quarter, dude. Seriously. That dude throws a lot of balls away.
Yeah, I'll go over.
I'm also going to say over because I think Rodgers is kind of like, at this point, he wants to maintain kind of like his vaulty stats, so he's going to not risk anything. He's just going to throw it out of bounds. Birdfinger saying over as well.
I honestly believe I've seen a few situations where he saw like the pre-snap lineups and had already sort of decided just to throw the ball into the dirt at the feet of his running back.
He just thought Richard Sherman was lining up in all of the offense. So Tony's saying
Tony's saying what?
Way over. Yeah. Birdfinger saying Clowney's coming for him, which would be great. Speaking of Clowney, over under flags for hitting the quarterback. How many flags do you think we're going to see? 2.5 over or under?
Total on both quarterbacks?
Overall, both sides.
I don't like. They don't like that. They don't. Wilson doesn't get a lot of those. He's a running quarterback.
He got the flag. He got a flag in the last game.
He did. I'm just saying he doesn't get a lot. There's a lot of like the borderline ones where if it's the right quarterback who's like a statue, they call it. But Russell's mobile, so they don't call it. It's kind of crap. Even if he's in the pocket. I'm gonna say under. I think like it's the playoffs. Refs want to let the game mostly go.
Zeb.
I'll go under, not necessarily for the same reasons, because I'll probably be 2 against us for hitting Rodgers.
Tony and Birdfinger saying under. I'm going to say over because I think what's going to happen is it's all going to be just like garbage flags that Aaron Rodgers is just going to be whining for, and they're going to just give it to him. I feel like this is a game, if he is going to like complain to the refs and really try and milk it for flags, this is a game because it just seems like a game that Aaron Rodgers is going to like, I'm just trying to win this game any way possible. He's going to try and get like, oh, he hit me late. Like, where's my flag? And our final predictions. We got 3 more playoff games coming up. So the first game is going to be Titans at Ravens. Who you guys have winning that one?
Ravens.
I'm going to call for the shock of the world and say Titans.
Ooh, that will really hurt Lamar's MVP win if that's what happens.
I'm a big believer in Derrick Henry carrying them to the Super Bowl, man.
Yeah, I mean, they only passed 15 times in that game. If that's all they need, then yeah. Birdfigure's saying Ravens. I'm saying Ravens as well. Who wins Vikings at Niners?
Zeb, you go first on this one. Thank you.
Niners.
What do you think, Sammy?
I'm thinking the Niners. I just don't trust Kirk Cousins. Like, people want to talk about Kirk Cousins having a great game. He only had 2 great throws in that game. It was the bomb to Aaron Thielen, and it was the touchdown pass to Kyle Rudolph. Like, people forget that in his first 4 quarters, they were pretty garbage.
Yeah, but they were good enough to stick in it, hang in that game, man. How many games the Seahawks won? Like, we had 1 or 2 good throws from Russell Wilson.
Yeah, but there's a difference. There's a difference because, like, Russell Wilson has a body of work where he's played well against good teams. Kirk Cousins doesn't have that record. So, hey, congratulations for having your first good playoff game. But no, like, I'm not impressed yet.
I'm not impressed with Kirk Cousins, but I love a redemption story. I know that on paper the 49ers are a better team, not even a much better team. I just feel like the Vikings as well surprise people.
I think the Vikings and specifically Kirk Cousins blew their load last week emotionally. Just like when they beat the Saints a couple years ago, next game they weren't able to emotionally get up and do it.
Yeah,
awesome. I think Dalvin Cook though is a young guy and he like that. And I think
he's good.
We'll see. We'll see. You guys are probably right, but I feel it.
The penultimate playoff game, Texans at Chiefs. Who you guys have winning?
Chiefs.
I don't know. It's a tie.
I hope this game is a shootout. I hope both teams go for like 40-plus points. I would love to watch that game.
Oh, hell yeah.
I like the Texans more. I don't like Mahomes particularly, but I guess the Chiefs win.
Yeah. I'm thinking the Chiefs are going to come out with slight edge. Birdfinger is calling the Chiefs as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for these playoff games. I think they're all going to be fun. Obviously, the Seahawks game will be great. It's the last game.
Is Will Fuller playing?
I have
if
no
Will
clue
Fuller's
who's
playing, I
injured on
think
that team.
If Will Fuller's playing, I think the Texans have a pretty decent shot. Their offense, he's only like the number 2/number 3 wide receiver, but the game their offense looks so much different when he's out there.
He's questionable, so I imagine he'll go.
Will Fuller's kind of a glass jaw.
last
a lot of games.
Last week, away teams went 3-1. That's not often seen in the playoffs.
No, not at all.
I think this week's going to be the exact opposite. The home teams are going to go 3-1. We're the one team winning on the road.
Ooh.
All right.
I didn't call that, but I'll take it.
It's a lead pipe lock, as they call it.
I think I'm going to go opposite. I'm going to go 3-1 for away team. Titans, Vikings, Seahawks win. Chiefs win that.
Dang.
And when I call these all right, I want credit next week.
I will. I'll give you all the credit in the world.
You'll be my shout out next week.
I will eat all the crow if I'm wrong, and I would be happy to be wrong. But gentlemen, that is our podcast for the day. Shout outs.
Shout out to Oyster Pep, aka Lil Chris, legitimately the worst rapper in the universe.
Congratulations for being the worst rapper.
2 weeks in a row, I'm shouting out Yumi because this she's listening to the podcast. She said she actually texted me during the thing saying she's listening. So shout out to Yumi. Shout out to Yumi? Tony's sharing our memories of Green Bay. We still got a chance, man. If you want to go Sunday, let me know. We got 2 days to get there.
I would also, I'd like to double up and shout out to Tony for teaching me some X-Wing online this week. So thank you. Shout out to Bird for always checking us out and being a great supporter. Shout out to the two gentlemen in the airways of Zeb and Ross. We are the Hawkscast podcast, and gentlemen, this is a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to what is in store for this game. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be fun. It's the last playoff game in the divisional round. And go to hawkscast.com. Check us out on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast and Seahawks Forum. I am Sam. There's Zeb and Ross, and we are wishing you a Go Hawks.
Go Hawks!
Hawks!
No pack, no.